Shalom to everyone who's here. I hear those Shabbat Shaloms, and I hear those Shabbat Shaloms coming over the internet, I hope. May there be a blessing upon each one of us, upon our world today, by virtue of the Sabbath that the Holy One has given us. Wow, it's a blessing to see real faces here in front of me, faces of friends that I know and love and care about. It's a blessing to know that on the other end of that camera, in homes and cars and wherever things may be, there's people that I also know and care about and love, and maybe those that I've never even met that are tuning in today to catch the revelation stream. May it be pouring out forcefully and powerfully over us here and over you where you are. This is the, I call it the Sabbath of the Great Coincidence. Obviously, I'm not a believer in coincidence the way the world thinks about it, but coincidence means two things coincide together. And the two things I'm talking about are the annual Torah cycle and its Parsha, and the festival cycle, the cycle of Moedim, or divine appointments that the Creator of the universe has established in Torah. And so we have these two things: the annual Torah cycle with its Parshot, and with the festival cycle, the harvest seasons that we have of the King. And the great coincidence is that this time of year, as we prepare for the greatest, the most powerful of the divine appointments, the most transformative and preparatory divine appointments that we might find, which are Yom Teruah, the day of breathing, blowing of shofars, the day of it's called atonement, Yom Kippur, the season of covering, when we emerge from our death throes, our chrysalis of death, and we emerge alive again, born again, anew, covered by the covering of the Holy One. And then the festival of Sukkot. These things are on our horizon, just over the corner. Hallelujah. But coinciding with those special times, those moving, transformative seasons, is the most moving, transformative portion of the Torah. The Parsha of the week, there's two: Parsha Nitzavim, some call it, and Parsha Vayalech, as it may be. These two coincide with the preparations for the day of breathing, and with the day of covering, and with the season of our joy that comes forth as we are repositioned, realigned in Sukkot. So it's with some trepidation that I approach this particular teaching. This is like the climax of the climax of Torah. This is as precious as it gets. This is the reason for which Torah was written. This is the reason for which it has been kept alive, sustained by men and angels and the Creator himself for all these years, that we would have days like this, days of divine destiny, days of appointment, days of humility, days of awakening like this. And Parshot Nitzavim and Vayalech reveal the purpose for which Torah is given, the purpose for which we are alive, the purpose for which the Creator of the universe has ordained that we would serve Him, honor Him, know Him, love Him, and serve the world. So what a time. And I'm humbled to be able to have the opportunity to speak to you in here, this room, and you on the internet about these subjects. Wow. Nitzavim. It starts out in Hebrew, Atem Nitzavim. And you are all hakolechem, and you are all standing hayom, this day. I want to stand up. I do want to stand up. My spirit inside. We'll do that in a moment. We're going to stand when we actually read this first aliyah of this two parsha set. You are all standing this day, and this idea of standing, of being called to stand, of being called up. I'm as you know, most of you do, I'm an attorney by profession, and I was in court this past week in a county that I'm not always going to, regularly going to. And I know the judge by virtue of the fact that he used to practice law here, and he moved over there back where his home was. But I was in his court, and some of these courts, like in the rural areas like this, are actually having full court where you have people in the gallery as opposed to just appointments, which is the COVID has sort of turned most of the court into one person at a time appointments. But this was a court that actually is having people present. I won't tell you where it is because they might get in trouble with the state bar. But the court convened court. The judge in his black robe convened the court. And I'm well trained. I'm a good trained monkey, I guess, or you might want to say. As soon as the court addresses my case, the case I'm there for, or addresses me personally, I have a reaction to that. You stand. In the presence, when you're addressing the judge, when you're addressing the one who sits on this Abama, this judgment seat, you stand. And so he calls the case I'm there for, and I stand, as is the custom of every attorney that I know in the world, because we honor the bench, we honor the atmosphere, we honor the system. We may find all sorts of things wrong with it, and I'm not trying to tell you there's nothing wrong with any of these systems. I'm telling you that if you don't honor the system, it will not honor you. It will not serve you at all. Well, anyway, that's enough of that. So I'm standing, and finally he greets me. He knows me personally. He says, "Hello, Bill." We have a brief interchange on the record, and then I sit down. And then he gets through some of the cases where there are lawyers present, and he begins to call cases in which the litigants, the parties, represent themselves. They have chosen not to have an attorney. One was a divorce, and the gentleman who was there, the male was there, the female may have been there somewhere too, but the male was there, and he calls the name of the case and that person's name. And the person sits there kind of sprawled out on the bench, on the seats in the gallery, with his arm over the next thing, and he stands there, sits there with his legs crossed, and he says, "Well, I'm here, Judge." And the courtroom just you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, you could have. There was no respect. There was no honor. There was no sense that you're above. You're in an environment that you need to take different approach to. And so the judge kind of bent his head down a little bit, like, okay, what am I going to say? How am I going to approach this? And he raises his head up again, and he had been smiling. He's not smiling. He's not frowning. He's just got a very, very solid face. And he calls the man's name. He says, "Stand when you address the court." And, of course, that particular stage cautioned. The man stood and faced the court rather sheepishly and humbly in that process. Now, I tell you this story, and I think it happened in my presence for a reason, to tell you that as we're at this Parsha and at this stage of Torah in which the call of Moshe is to stand, that we need to realize this is bigger than just normal life. This is very, very important. We are in an atmosphere of holiness. We're in an atmosphere of importance, and we need to address it appropriately. That doesn't mean we get all frightened and weepy. It doesn't mean we get all up in our emotions. It does mean, however, that we take a deep breath and we honor the atmosphere in which we are. So we're in this climactic week of Torah. After this, it will all be what I call epilogue. You know, Moshe will say goodbye. We'll have the song. He'll sing a song over us, the great prophetic song of the ages that will tell the entire story of mankind's history and how it will end. And then he will bless the tribes of Israel for the mission they're called in all the nation, among all the nations. And then he will walk up Mount Nebo, and one last mountain to climb, as it's sometimes said. And as he walks up Mount Nebo, somewhere down the road, he will be greeted and met by the creator of the universe he knows so well. I see them walking hand in hand, and then that reaching the vanishing point together. And that vanishing point will be considered by most of us as Moshe's death and burial, but it really is the beginning of the next phase of Moshe's relationship with the creator of the universe, the next level of interaction that we can't see. It's beyond our line of sight or anything we would read. Okay. So hopefully, as we understand, this is if Moshe could say, you remember when I started telling you, Bereshit bara Elohim, and the Holy One created the heavens and the earth? Back in Genesis 1:1, remember when I told you the story, when I began to download to you the history of the universe, the history of the planet that you live on, the history of mankind, your personal history. When I began to tell you, and the Holy One appeared spoke to Avram and said, Lech lecha, go out for yourself. Go to a land I will show you. Leave your father's house and your country and all your ways, and go unto the place I've called you. And I will make you a great nation. I'll give you a great, glorious name. All the things that he told Abraham in Genesis 12. Remember when I told you about that? Whenever I told you that story. Remember when I told you about in Genesis 26, when I was telling to you about Yitzhak and Isaac, this person that connects with you. And I told you how the Holy One appeared to him. I gave you this history, and how he said that you will be blessed because Abraham, your father, because your father Abraham shmad my voice. He tuned into my voice, and he began to treasure and cherish my covenant, and he kept my charge and my mitzvot. In my ordinances, we say, I don't remember all that. But you now know what we're talking about, because now I've told you more. I've told you about my encounter with the Holy One, Moshe might say. I've told you about the burning bush in my 80th year, when I thought my life was over on the backside of nowhere in Midian, and I was old and a failure and a refugee and a murderer condemned to die, and the Holy One appeared to me in a burning bush and kicked off the 40 years. And I've told you what happened in the next 40 years. I've given you a play-by-play. And do you remember when I told you all those things? You thought I was just telling you a nice story? No, I was bringing you to this moment. I was preparing you for this precious moment. Stand. You need to stand for this. This is your time. You are all standing. And so if you would, we will begin this Parsha by what we usually do. I would ask you to really truly stand, those who are here. This is not in honor of anything besides the beauty of the words of the living God and our King. As if we're in the courts of heaven before this judge with the black robe. And I will read in the English. Open our eyes, O Holy One, our God, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth. Please do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. Amen. All of you stand today before the face of the Holy One, your God, your leaders, your tribes, and your elders, and your officers, and all the men of Israel, and your little ones, and your wives, and also the stranger who is in your camp, from the one who cuts your wood to the one who draws your water, in order that you may enter into the covenant with the Holy One your God, and into his fullness of oath, which the Holy One your God makes with you this day, that he may establish you today as his people, as a people for himself, that he may be God to you, just as he has spoken to you, and just as he has sworn to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and Yaakov. I make this covenant and this oath of fullness not with you alone, but with him who stands here with us today before the Holy One our God, as well as him who is not here with us today. For you know that we dwelt in the land of Egypt, that we came through the nations, the ethnicities, as we passed by. And you saw their abominations and their idols that were among them, wood, stone, silver, gold, so that there may not be among you a man or a woman or a family or a tribe whose heart turns away today from the Holy One your God, to go after and serve the gods of the nations, and in order that there may not be among you a root bearing bitter fruit or wormwood, and so that it may never happen that when someone hears the words of this curse, that he blesses himself in his heart, saying, I will have shalom or peace, even though I follow the dictates of my own heart, as though the drunkard could be included with the sober. You may be seated. Nitzavim, or Nitzavim, the first portion of our Parsha today, of our study today, is preparing us for Yom Teruah. It's preparing us for a divine appointment when the shofar sounds, when the breath of God awakens something deep within our spirit, and we stand trembling before him, just as a lawyer stands before the judge in this process. Yom Teruah will be the first beginning of that process. And Nitzavim is preparing us for that solemnity, that sense of destiny awaiting us. I call this the Parsha of cutting the all-in betrothal covenant. I'll say it again, the Parsha of cutting the all-in betrothal covenant. Last week I sort of mentioned off the cuff that this was the week of, are you all in? Because I knew this was coming this week. This week he's going to ask you to commit for the glory of who he is, for the sake of the grand plan and purpose for which he has designed you and created you and placed you on earth, for the sake of the world he's created and the creation that is groaning in eager expectation for the sons of God to be manifested and revealed in real time. For the sake of all those things, he is going to say to us, I need you to commit. Are you all in? Not are you all in on some theological belief system. Not are you all in on some ideological justice movement. Are you all in covenant with the creator of the universe? Are you all in like Abraham came all in? Are you all in like Moshe would say, became all in, went all in over the course of a 40-year training program? Are you ready to commit to go all in because the world is waiting for you? The world is waiting upon you. The creation is waiting upon you. Your bloodline is waiting upon you. The people that are not even here are watching to see you. People who you will not have not been born yet. People who are of your bloodline who are waiting the fullness of the great cloud of witnesses to calling you on. Come on, you can finish this race. You can finish this race. This is the solemnity of this moment. Are you ready for an all-in betrothal covenant with the one who created you, designed you? Bill, you're so heavy. This is so heavy. Yeah, it sort of is. It's sort of, we played enough in the world. We play enough with our own emotions and our own self-will, our own intellect, our pseudo-intellect. We think we're so intelligent. We think we're so smart. We think we're right about all these things. We've played around enough. It is sort of that time. It's that season of culmination of all that Moshe has taught us and all that the Holy One has tried to awaken in us, which is what was carried forward by Yeshua. Yeshua put it this way, a little bit differently. John chapter 15, the upper room. I'd rather read it to you than talk to you about it, so I'll just go on. John chapter 15. This is that precious moment of solemnity. John chapter 15, beginning with verse 14. This is the way Yeshua put it. Same story, same issue. Verse 14. Yeshua speaking to those gathered around the table. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants. For a servant doesn't know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends. For all things that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You didn't choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go forth and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, and that whatever you ask the Father in my name, in my attributes, in my character, in my will, he will give you. And these things I instruct you, that you love and honor one another. Amen. Now that's the message of how Yeshua carried forth the same passion of Moshe. As Moshe is concluding basically his world life ministry, as he begins to tell you why he's been doing what he's done, why we have this thing called the Torah, and the foundation of all revelation streams comes. He says this foundation is so that the same thing that Yeshua is going to tell you about later, so that you could become friends, not merely servants. Servants are necessary. Servants are important. Servants of God are important. But there is a level at which we're called to a higher degree of intimacy, a higher degree of responsibility, a higher degree of accountability, a higher degree of joy and communion. And that is this level that he's calling us to today, as we are all standing, as he's brought us to this point and brought us into the commitment of the covenant, the all-in betrothal commitment. Now, what's the substance of it? What's the nature of it? Those are the questions you've got. What does it mean to be standing? What does our standing mean? There are two Hebrew verbs that are used regularly in the Torah to describe standing. And one is the verb amad. It just means to stand, waiting, kind of passively desiring to serve, waiting to see what someone needs, to amad. This is the same verb from which we take the word Amidah, which is our prayer. The morning, evening, and afternoon prayers historically are Amidah, standing prayers. We stand before the wall. We stand facing Jerusalem. We stand to make these prayers. Actually, they're just confessions. They're not really prayers as English people think of prayers at all. They're confessions, remembrances, recitations, and then there are some requests that are attached to them. So the Amidah is to stand passively, awaiting an opportunity to serve, to stand as a servant. But there is another verb in Hebrew that is translated to stand as well. And this is Nitzavim, which is the root word of this Parsha, this whole discussion Moshe is having. Nitzavim is different, a different kind of standing than Amad is. To Amad, as I said, was to stand as a servant, awaiting passively instruction. Nitzavim is to stand as a friend, as a soldier, as a dedicated partner in covenant, to stand alongside, to stand with purpose, to stand with intentionality, to stand with focus and passionate commitment to a mission, to a plan, to an assignment, to volunteer for and to present oneself for deployment in a great kingdom enterprises, to rise to an occasion, to stand out, to stand separate and apart. This is Nitzavim. We are standing today. We're not just standing as servants. We're standing as committed, loyal, bridal friends. willing to go where he goes, whithersoever you go, I will go. Wheresoever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. This is that level of betrothal, all-in commitment that the standing that we're talking about is doing. Are we there or not? And I look around you, and I look at myself, and I think of you on the other end of this camera, and I say, oh my heavens, Bill, I wasn't ready for this today. I mean, I still got stuff I'm thinking about. I still got personal stuff I'm thinking about. I still got cultural stuff I'm thinking about. I still got politics and ideology and religion stuff I'm thinking about. And you're taking me to a whole nother level, a whole nother realm. Bill, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And here's the good news. Nobody ever thinks they are. And if you did think you were, that would be the first sign that you are not. You know, there's a portion, I think I can find it. It's Isaiah 47. It sort of tells us where we are at this particular stage. See if I can find it. 47. Yeah. This is the prophet speaking, and he says, for you have trusted, it's verse 10 of chapter 47. For you have trusted in your wickedness. That which is not evil. It's just things that are not straight, things that are crooked. You trust in the things that are just not right in order, that are not according to plan. You have said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and your knowledge have warped you. I want to just repeat that last phrase. This was the most offensive thing I ever read. He says, your wisdom and your knowledge have warped you. You are broken, bent down under the weight of the things you think you know. You are trembling and about ready to collapse and fall because of the weight of the stuff you think is your strength, you think you know about, you think you understand. So if you're like me and like these folks that are in this room, or you're like most of the people, and you say, I'm not ready for this, I can't do this, you're in perfect position. That's the position he wants. That sense of humility that will stand because we realize we're in the presence of greatness. And it's not about what we brought to the table, it's about what he wants to do. That's most important in our life and his beauty. So this is what it means, Nitzavim. And I want to go kind of into that. The opening words, as I spoke them in English, this is the Hebrew. Atem Nitzavim hayom kulechem lefnei Adonai Elohechem. And you are standing today before the face of the Holy One, your God. Now, this is critical to everything else we're going to talk about, so we do need to talk about where we're standing. This all-in betrothal level commitment to covenant that we're talking about depends upon one thing, and that depends upon not you standing in this room, not you standing at your house or your residence or your office. Not that. It's about where you stand in relation to one person, one persona only. Where do you stand in relationship to the Holy One, your God? And the more critical facet of that is, the most critical facet of that, not the idea of your God, not your theological construct of your God, not the name. I sometimes think we're hooked on phonics. We love to call these names, and add vowels and throw this and that. Not about how you feel about the title or pronunciation of a name. Those are not what matters to this. What matters to this is, where do you stand in relation to the face of the Holy One, your God? The face. The face is the place. As I'm reading this every year, I start, and I realize Facebook is going to probably block this out in a few years. After October 1st, it'll close this off. But For right now, I can get by with this, maybe. You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips. And you know the rest of the song. And there's no welcome look in your eyes, and there's no gentleness in your fingertips. You've taken yourself away from me little bit by little bit. You've taken, you go through stages in marriage, for instance, and you begin to lose parts of each other that you loved whenever you were young and fresh in the relationship. You begin to lose the sense, the energy of the hand holding. Sometimes they take their hand away. They don't mean to. It's not an intentional act, but the love, the one of your life begins to take away. Just pull away the hand. It isn't, maybe it doesn't feel the same anymore, so that it feels awkward, or they got things to do. There's too much business going on, and they don't have time just to take your hand and hold your hand, and so they take away their hand. And that's the first sign. The first sign is to take, and then they take away the smile. They give smiles to everybody else. And they don't mean to do this. They're not trying to hurt you. They don't hate you. They're not leaving you, but they take away their smile from you. That sense of, when you look at them, they just immediately break into this smile, this sense of, this is good. So you take away parts of you take away the gentle words. You begin to be critical one to another. You begin to be abstract in your thought processes, and this begins, you take one thing after another away without even realizing you're taking it away. But the other side knows. You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips. Now, this is the process. Where do you stand in regard to the face of the Holy One, your God? There is this thing that the human being likes to do, which is to take all our wisdom and knowledge and substitute it for the face of God. Substitute it for the sense of His presence, His nearness, the sense of His persona flooding into the room, filling the room, providing the atmosphere with energy and with electricity. We substitute that with stuff we know in our heads, with stuff we've read, stuff we've watched on TV or YouTube or something like that. We substitute it for information. We substitute it for teaching. We substitute it for education. We substitute it for theory. We substitute it with whatever form, religious form, doctrine. We substitute it with music. We substitute it with song. We substitute it with teaching. Whatever it is, we substitute, and we lose. We haven't left Him. We've just turned our face away. We don't close our eyes anymore when His lips draw near. We don't yield our hand and let Him guide us through life. We don't dance anymore. We're not tender toward Him anymore. We're not receiving His energy anymore. We're thinking stuff and spouting stuff with our mouth, but we're not really connected to Him. And so every year at this season, both as we prepare for Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, on the one hand of the great coincidence, and then as we prepare to go through Parsha Nitzavim on the annual Torah cycle, every year at this time, my heart begins to cry out for the locked gaze. I hope yours is as well. Locking gaze. Locking full-on facial, face-to-face communication with the King, with the one who created you. Full-on, nothing with partially here. No screen in front of it. Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. No, I'm sorry. I'm replying to a post right now. These people are all messed up. I got to fix them. None of that. Full on, all in, facial connection, the locked gaze. And so as I prepare for a teaching like this, I just say, how do I, if they don't have that desire already, I can't help them. Maybe I can stir it up a little bit. Maybe I can increase the level of passion, hunger for that. But that's all of it depends on this. All of it depends on you wanting to reconnect with a locked gaze, full bore facial connection, intimate heart-to-heart connection with your Creator, with Him. As Yeshua said, I don't call you servant. I'm not sitting here judging your service. I'm calling my friends. I'm calling those who will enter all in with this love relationship with me. And maybe I sound a little bit like a preacher today, and maybe Moshe sounds a little bit like a preacher in this entire Parsha. I don't know what a preacher's supposed to sound like, but I know that this is the cry of my heart for my children, for myself, but for all my children. If I could leave all the Torah studies, all the Torah teaching, all the biblical training, all the things that I do, all the fun little, hopefully wisdom posts on Facebook, I could leave all that behind. But if I haven't taught them to hunger, if I haven't awakened in them the hunger to gaze full-on facial, eyeball to eyeball, heart to heart, passion, breath to breath with the Creator of the universe, none of it matters. It's all just a game that I played in my mind. So I'm lingering here for a few minutes because this is what it's all about. This level of seeking Him, because you can't do any of this stuff. It would be useless. It would be an insult to try to do anything like this without Him. It is all about Him. It is Him doing it. He just gives us the privilege of being the friends that He calls alongside to do these things that He has planned with Him. So how do you stand? Where do you stand in relationship to the face of the Holy One today? Where do you stand with His face? Are your eyes fully committed to Him? Is your heart fully committed to Him? Is every breath of your lungs fully committed to Him? He said, I don't think I can do this. Good, because you can't. But He can make it happen. He can bring it about day by day, moment by moment, circumstance by circumstance, conversation by conversation, training program, training protocol by training protocol. He will do it. Just make the commitment. All He's asking for is the commitment, not the performance yet. The commitment, the desire, the passion, the hunger, the connection. That's what He's desiring. He's fully confident of His ability to bring forth all the things in you that He designed to be there. You know, I think Shaul says something along the lines of, He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. He is fully confident that if you'll just make the commitment this day, turn your face back to Him, yield your heart, yield like the lover and the friend that you are, yield to Him as a persona, as His identity, His persona, His character, His nature, His being, then He will bring forth the good things that need to happen. All right, so I want to carry on. The basic outline this week is we are renewing a covenant, but we're doing something. The covenant that we're seeing doesn't look completely like anything we've seen before. Theologically, you hear people talk all the time about covenant like they know what they're talking about, and they teach these things. They may have courses and books written on covenant. The Edenic covenant, and the Noahic covenant, and the Abrahamic covenant, and this, that, and the other covenant, then the Mosaic covenant, and the New Covenant, and the Davidic covenant, all these different things, and the mind of man goes through all of its little traps, playing games, coming up with theological premises about these covenants, and the Holy One says, covenant's not like that. Covenant is when you, with beating heart and trembling lips, put your hand in my hand and says, where you go, I will go. What you do, I will do. And if you have any other idea of covenant besides that, you're all playing mind games with yourself. And you can teach courses in theological seminaries, but you can't do covenant. Now this challenge, so he says this covenant doesn't look like any of those other covenants, and yet it looks like all of them rolled together because it's all the same thing. Will you put your hand in his hand? Will you do what he says to do? Will you listen? Will you tune your ear to his voice? Will you follow his instructions and his words? Will you walk with him throughout your life? That's the challenge. So he says this actually is going to look a lot like if you were to take the Abrahamic, what we know of as the Abrahamic covenant. What is that? Well, go out for yourself. Go out. Find who you really are. Go out from the culture in which you live. Go out from the mindsets in which you've adopted. Go out from the worldview that most people around you have. Go out from even your own sense of your own identity. Go out from that and discover who you really are, be created in. Go out, and as you go forth, understand I'm going to do something in you. I'm going to take you somewhere, first of all. We're going to walk together. I'm going to take you to a land you don't know of. And when you get there, as you are getting there, and throughout your generations, I will make you a great name. I will make a great nation of you. Oh, this is the covenant, right? I'm going to make a great nation. I'm going to make Bnei Israel is what he's basically promising. The sons and daughters of Israel. I'm going to make a great nation of you. And I will bless you. And you will be a blessing. This is the covenant. I will make you, and you will be a blessing. And those who bless you will be blessed, and those who declare curses against you will have those curses come back on their own heads. And you will be a blessing to every family on the face of the earth. Whew. Okay, now that's the introduction part to the Abrahamic covenant. And he goes further. He says, now I'm going to give you this particular land. You will be eternally connected with this land, and so will your seed, your generations after you, those born naturally, those born artificially through adoption. In this process, your seed will have this land and be intermittently connected with this land, and it will become this great beacon of hope and life into the entire world because you are there doing with me the things that we called to do. Now that's the Abrahamic covenant. Wow, powerful. We're all in, right? Take it, oh my, oh me. We're all in. We're leaving everything we're familiar with, all the mindsets and worldviews and all the cultural belief systems and all the social customs. We're leaving all that behind for the sake of this beautiful vision he's just outlaid for us and the calling to be a blessing to every household, every family on the face of the earth. We're all in, right? Okay, you don't have to raise your hand. Because there are some things we leave behind to do that. But that's the Abrahamic side. We know that side pretty well. And then there's this other thing we've been reading lately, this whole Sinaitic thing from Sinai. And now there's so much to it. It's instruction after instruction after instruction. It's detail after detail after detail. I mean, we built the Mishkan, the tabernacle, as a pattern of how we're supposed to relate to man and God. We've got all these different instructions, some about food and how we dress and how we represent ourselves and loving Him, loving our neighbor, all these things of Sinai. It says we've lost the connection between the Abrahamic call and its mission and the Sinaitic call, which is more servant-oriented, it seems. He says, now here's the beautiful magic about this moment, about this week, about this season. I'm taking everything you know about the Abrahamic covenant and everything you know about the Sinaitic covenant. And I'm merging it together in unity, in the unity of love and friendship. And I'm sending you out in the world to model it to the rest of the nations and the peoples. Now, this is that covenant to which we are called. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about that as to what it means and how this covenant affects us. Boy, got to go through all my outline stuff. It means, first of all, boiled down to all its essentials, it means that we are his people, right? Remember, you heard that in the readings. You will be my people. His people. Don't let the details trap you. Don't let the details get you caught. Don't let phonics mess you up. Don't let theory or theology get you confused. The issue is this: do you want to be his people? Nothing else you do will matter unless this is true. And you are not only his people in your own mind. You are his people by the way you live, by the way you act. Are you his people? You are entering into this covenant so that you may be his people. We may be his people. His unique, treasured, cherished possession, as he said at Sinai. His Am Segulah, his special people. What does it mean for us to be his people? His people. I hope if we're not face to face with him, we'll get a theological construct of what that looks like. If we're face to face to him, it's like that look that Rosemary has with me sometimes. It doesn't matter what we have to face. It doesn't matter how much money's in the bank. It doesn't matter how much food's in the cupboard. It doesn't matter how my body feels. It doesn't matter how much weight I've gained. It doesn't matter how much tired I am, how much I hurt. It doesn't matter how bad our children are suffering. Here's the deal. I'm yours. You're mine. We're in this together. I am your wife. I am your husband. We're not leaving. We're not getting up. We may go through all sorts of issues, but one thing is certain, one thing is for sure. I am yours. You are mine. This is what it means to be his people. That we are his no matter what, no matter how bad the economy gets, no matter how bad the movements treat us, no matter how bad Facebook censors us, no matter how bad some of the social media programs go nuts on us, no matter how much the government lies to us. That doesn't change anything. No matter who beats us, no matter who kills us, no matter who takes our children and abuses them, nothing matters. But we are his people. This is why we're entering into this covenant. That's why he's taking the Abrahamic and he's taking the Sinaitic and he's merging them together and he's birthing them inside of our hearts, saying these two things go together perfectly. And if you try to do one without the other, you'll somehow mess up. I think Paul had a whole session about that. That if you mess up, take out the Abrahamic, you don't have anything with just the Sinaitic. You need to have them both. Well, are we his people? Are you? I mean, and I'm asking these tough questions because if I don't ask them, who will? And you tuned in for this reason. You didn't know it. This is the reason you tuned in. This is the reason you came today. Because the world wants to know. Heaven, the angels want to know. The Holy One himself wants to know. I just hear him say to some of you, he says, look at me. He's not talking about me. He says, look at me, he says. You pulled your eyes away from me. You've taken your eyes away from me. You've taken your smile away from me. You've taken your hands away from me. You've taken your heart away from me. You've taken your secrets away from me. You've taken your dreams away from me. So please turn and look at me. Let's lock gaze again. Because I want you to be mine. I want to be yours. I want this level of intimacy because the world is waiting to see what it looks like. So are you his people? And wherever you are and whatever your status and your answer to that might be at this moment, the answer he is saying is, I have called you to be my people. How you respond is somewhat up to you. I will give you a level of freedom of choice here. But ultimately, if you have any sense left of who I created you to be, your heart is panting, your pulse is racing, and you can't wait to get back to that state where you look in his face again and say, I am yours. Along with so many, many thousands, millions, billions of others across the nations and generations. Well, that's the first step. It means that we are to commit to be his people. The second thing is we are to commit to let him be our God. How are we with this? Are we okay with him being our God, our Elohim, our ultimate authority on everything, our sovereign, the one to whom we yield, the one before whom we stand, the one unto whom we offer all of our love, all of our attention, all of our focus? Is he our God, or is he just God? This is the pronoun, the personal possessive pronoun, our. Is he your? Is he our God, or is he just God? Because God can be sort of out there somewhere, a being that exists, a creator or whatever. But our God means that, no, he's personal to us. We have certain relational rights with him, relational contact, intimacy with him that precludes other activities on our part, other allegiances that we might enter into, other avenues of entertainment, other delights, other opinions, other attitudes, other moods. If he's our God, then we are completely his. And he is completely ours. And as our God, we appropriate his attributes and yield to his attributes and his ways of thinking and his ways of approaching life and people and circumstances. One thing for us to be his people. It's another thing for him to be our God. And so, have you made him your God? Have you yielded to him as your God? This is the challenge Moshe is laying before us. I believe it's also the same challenge that Yeshua laid before the Talmudim. Is he your God in this process? Are you friends? Or are you just servants? Theologians, are you just biologically seeking to have something happen to you? Third thing, so the covenant, what does it entail? What are we standing for? What are we standing for? When we stand, and we are all standing, when we stand, what are we standing for? Why are we alive? What is our purpose? What is our sense of direction? What is our vision for the life that we live, for the impact that we have on the creation? What is our purpose? What do we stand for? Again, I know these are not easy, simple questions. This is not playtime. This is real. Because of the season we're in, we kind of need to get real. If I were to tell you that as far as comfort and ease and convenience and material blessing, we've seen the best days. And they're rapidly deteriorating into chaos. Order is rapidly deteriorating into wild chaos, and monetary systems are collapsing, and all the things, the ideals, the things that we held to, the things that were valuable to us, the things that we held true and self-evident, are collapsing under a facade, a ranting, chanting, raging, hating mindset of very broken humanity. If I were to tell you that the next few years are going to look a lot like you've always thought the tribulation was going to look like, and it's going to start very soon. If I were to tell you that, I'm not telling you that, but if I were to tell you that, would you still say, we are your people, I'm yours, and you are my God? Would you now, what do I need to do in the face of the things that are coming upon the earth, coming upon my nation, coming upon my community, coming upon my family? In light of what may be coming, what appears to be coming down the pike, with the better days of economy and better days of socialization, better days of safety and security, better days of ownership, property ownership, all those things being potentially taken away rapidly, with chaos and destruction and hate ruling in the atmosphere. If that were to happen, what would be our calling? What would be our responsibility? What would it mean for us to be his people in that context, and for him to be our God in that context? I hope you're ready for this. I hope we're ready for whatever comes, and the only way we can be so is to have a locked gaze with our Creator. This is why it's so important that I ask you these questions. That Moshe asked me these questions every year about this time. Are you ready for whatever comes? And no, you're not ready. Are you ready to stand with me, whatever comes? Are you ready to stand with me, whatever comes? So what will it look like? How then should we behave? How then should we present ourselves to the world? How then should we interact with the world? Should we run off and hide somewhere? Because you see, if we run off and hide from somewhere, the first person we're going to leave is the Creator himself. We're going to take away our face. We're going to take away our hands. We're going to take away our heart. We're going to take away our vessels, our portals of love. That's what I really call these things. The portals of love are your eyes, your ears, your touch, your presence, your face, your stare, your gaze. These are your portals of love. This is what you receive and give love. And if you run away, it means you've taken all for your own self-protection, which is, of course, first key. Self-interest, self-protection, self-preservation, self-will. Does this thing sound familiar to anybody? This sounds like the Garden of Eden to you, anybody? It sounds like the problem that we had along the way at Marah, the problem that we had along the way in all the wilderness stations, the problem of self-will. So running away is not going to be an option. When he takes us wherever he wants to take us, that's another story. But we're with him. If we just try to run away from the problems, we'll never be able to serve and fulfill our purposes. So then if we're still here, if we're in some level of interaction with the world as it's devolving into chaos, what then is our role? What then is our function? Well, he will lead us in it as we go, but there are certain things he wants to know. Abrahamic covenant, Sinaitic covenant. This is your guideline. This is your pathway. This is your roadway. I'll lead you with specifics and priorities as the time arises, as the need arises. But in the process of it, this is your runway. These are the areas within which you stay focused and stay away from the difficult processes. And I will teach you the various things you need to know. You will be a blessing to every family on the face of the earth. That means you don't get to be sarcastic with them and smart off to them. It means you don't get a chance, you don't have the right to accuse them, blame them, to see only their darkness, only their evil. You are to be a blessing to every family. And that means father, son, children, bloodline. See in them some potential. This is your secret. This is your secret of success. You will find this level at which you can interact with the world through my eyes of dealing with one person at a time, not ideas, not abstract concepts, not senses of justice in theory. In dealing with one person at a time, one situation at a time, you will learn to see the good and minister to the good. See the potential and the possibility and minister into the potential and the possibility. Quit seeing the things that are wrong. Anybody can see the things that are wrong. It's so obvious what things are wrong. It requires no discernment on your part whatsoever to see what's wrong. The only issue is, do you see what the potential is for healing in this particular situation you are facing? with this particular person you're dealing with. That's all that matters. All right. What are we standing against? What are the things that will kill us? What are the things that will drain us of the passion, drain us of the presence, of the energy of his presence, of the sweetness of his face, of the character, the attributes, the fruit of the Spirit, as he would say? What are the things? The first thing is when you turn your face away, when you turn your love receptacles away. Verse 19 of chapter 29. When you turn your face, I think in English, my Bible actually says heart, but the word is pane. It's face. When you turn your face away from him, when you break the flow of the energy pulsing between the Creator himself and you. You can do this in any ways. You can do it religiously. You can do it scientifically. You can do it philosophically. You can do it ideologically. You can do it emotionally with your emotional. You can do it any way you want to. But if you turn your face away from him, that's what we're having to stand. We're having to take a stand against turning our face away for any purpose, for anything, and breaking the love flow. Because if we do turn our face away, then we have certain things that he knows that we should know now will take place. Will follow if we turn our face away. We will, without necessarily even choosing to, we will inevitably, once we turn our face away, once we turn our love receptacles away from him, we will attach them to something else. We will attach our affections. We will attach our attention. We will spend our energy and our time on something else. And that something else will be the gods of the cultures in which we live. You say, Bill, what are the gods of the cultures in which we live? Those things which occupy their thoughts. Those things they always want to talk about. Those things that they put into their entertainment programs. Because they know that appeals to it sells. The things that sell in ethnicities besides kingdom ethnicities. The things that sell, the things that attract, the things that bring sentimentality. The things that bring what they call falsely empathy. Run from empathy as fast and as far as you can. We are never in the Torah called to empathy. Yeshua never called us to empathy. We're called to following the King, serving the King, and loving our fellow man. And empathy is a false god of American Western culture. Now, there are so many false gods of this culture. Everything you see on television, everything you see on Facebook or Twitter or Parler or MeWe or any Instagram, everything you see is a picture of the false gods of this culture. I would not tell you this if it wasn't true. I unfortunately have to tell you that if you are not face-to-face, love receptacle to love receptacle with the Holy One, you will inevitably attach to one or more or a series of these things that the cultures around you say are important, and they will be your false gods. All gods means, Elohim, all it means is authorities, those who are given priority, those things that are given importance, assigned importance in the world. He is the Elohim. The other things that the cultures assign importance to are false gods. That's where we get into. He says, I know that it's going to do that. And what's going to happen is, if you do that, step one, you turn your love receptacles, your face is away from me, and you lose that energy flow that goes from our relationship, then you will unwillingly maybe attach yourself to some ideology, some movement, some theory, some pleasure, some entertainment system, something that brings you some level of mini fulfillment in your world, and then here's what will happen. You will grow cold to my words. My words will not mean to you what they're supposed to mean to you. They won't be the words of a friend or a lover. They'll be words of a archaic God somewhere out there who just wants to ruin your fun and mess with your day and mess with your life. And so what will happen is you will bless yourselves or bless your own heart, saying, those curses, those things, the fullness of what the Holy One has said, Allah in Hebrew, it's not really curses, it's the fullness of what he has said, does not apply to me. I will have peace. I will have shalom from some other source, from my own self-expression, my own sense of personal identity, my own sexuality. I'll get shalom from my cultural identification. I'll get it from my gender identification. I'll get it from my ideological position. I'll get it from my political party that I stand on. I'll get it from my philosophy. I'll get it from my education process. I'll get it from my work. I'll get it from my romance. I'll get it from my pleasure. I'll get it from my thrills, my vacations. I'll get it from something else. I will have shalom, and he will not be a part of it. And his word will not direct or govern where I find my shalom. He says when that happens, obviously there's some consequences will flow. The consequences, believe it or not, are not something the Holy One just does out of anger or wrath to you. The consequences are that we step out of the protected area, protected zone of his pleasure, of his face, of his presence. And as Grandma told Little Red Riding Hood, there's evil lurking in those woods. I don't know if you remember the story, but before his mother sent Little Red Riding Hood out to take the basket of goods to her grandmother, to Grandma, at Grandma's house, she said to her, don't get off the main road, because off the main road there's evil lurking in those woods. And that became the theme of the Red Riding Hood. That you're off the path, you go out to pick the flowers, you see something that looks good, you go out and you pick the flowers, and lo and behold, you run into the big bad wolf. And the big bad wolf reads you like a book. Reads your weaknesses, reads your idiosyncrasies, and understands that he can go and substitute himself for your grandma, and you will be serving him the rest of your life, or being eaten alive by him, if so be it. This is that process of learning that there is danger lurking in the woods, and these warnings that were given by the Holy One are not warnings that he hates you, he's vindictive in some way. He's telling you, hey, look, I created you for this. This is where your shalom, this is where your purpose lies. If you start walking away from this, and you turn away from it, and you won't turn back, then this is going to happen. These are the things that will happen to you, because there's dangers lurking in the woods. There's evil lurking in the woods. Well, this is our challenge for Parsha Nitzavim. I would love to sort of end it there, but we have this special thing this week, which is two Parshas. We step forward even beyond that to Parsha Vayalech. The Parsha Vayalech, it starts out and says that, and Moshe walked or went out. Yalach, he went out. He finished his speech. He finished all the speeches he was doing on the plain. He gave every word of devar, of kingdom weight that he had in him. He spent it all. He'd done it. He fulfilled the purpose for which he was put on the earth. He's given us all the Torah as a legacy. He's given us our history, our sense of where we belong in the world, where the universe sits and how it came about, and where we fit into it, and what our purpose is. He's given us all that. He's going to give us a song. He's going to give us a blessing. He gave us the tabernacle, the picture of how we interrelate with the King and the holy things of God. He's reawakened us to the Sabbath that was created at the beginning and the seventh day. He's reawakened us to all these aspects of covenant and blessing, and now he turns and he walks away. He goes out. And in his going out, he's got two basic themes, and I'll short-circuit Vayalech. with two basic themes. And the first of the two themes is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The Holy One, your God, goes with you. You know, look in front of you. Look what's ahead of you. Look what you're going to face. The obstacles are huge, and the nations are stronger than you are, and the powers that be in this physical world are overwhelming, and you're going to feel like you are totally inadequate, unprepared, incapable of dealing with it. He says, "Oh, don't be afraid." This is what being the people of God is. This is what having Him be our God means, is that we see things that are absolutely overwhelming and insurmountable in our natural eyes, and we are not afraid. Just do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. It is He. It is He. It is He, the one who you face to face with, the one you've known, the one I've introduced you to, the one I've told you about from the moment He said, Yehi or, from the moment He began to move upon the face of the waters, from the moment He changed, turned tohu uvohu ukosek into light and into order and structure, and He brought the world into being. I've introduced you to Him. It is He who is going with you into the world to come, into the range of things, the chaos, the disaster, the seeming calamity that you're about to face. Do not be afraid. It is He who goes with you, and He will preserve you, and He will guide you, and He will direct you, and He will be your counselor. He will be your wisdom. And then the second basic theme of Parsha Vayalech. Let me pull that out real quick. Well, the second theme is you are witnesses. The second theme is that the Torah is a witness for you, or is a witness against you. That the heavens that were created are a witness for you, or they're a witness against you. And the earth, the eretz in which you live, will testify for you or will testify against you. So how will the earth testify for you or against you? If you have brought shalom into your sphere of influence, if you have brought hope, if you have brought the wisdom, the counsel, the presence of the Holy One into your sphere of influence, then the earth and its natural processes will respond. It will grow fruitful. It will be nurturing. There will be fruit all around you. You will do what I told you man would do in the first place. When I took man out of the earth, I said, let us make him in our own image, that he may be fruitful and multiply, that he may take authority over the land, that he may bring it forth its best in this process. So the earth will testify with you. The heavens will testify with you. You've been given all the wisdom, the beauty, the majesty. His earth, his heavens testify the resound the glory of God, and now they will testify. Did you respond? Did you stand in the presence of the King? Did you take your stand? Did you stand as friends, making the all-in commitment to the King? They will be there when you're gone. They will say, we testified to you. We told you every night, every morning, every day, with every breeze, with every storm, with every passing moment of time. We told you who our Creator was, and we welcomed you in that, and you didn't do that. And the Torah and the song will be the final testimony. Now the question is, have we become the people of the Holy One? Have we let Him become our God? Have we let these two covenants of Abraham, two senses of covenant, it's all one covenant, two senses of this purpose and the Sinaitic purpose blending together to cover every aspect of our life and provide the atmosphere in which we live, breathe, and have our being? Have we begun to do that? The Torah will be our witness that yes, we have, no, we haven't. We are going to conclude today. It's Moshe's farewell tour. And at a certain stage, Moshe, as he begins his farewell tour, he says, I am 120 years old. A very important number. That's what the Holy One said that he would, the length of man's days would be in an ideal situation, 120 days, if you remember that from back in Genesis. And he said, 120 years, I'm 120 years old. And then the Holy One says to him, wakes him up, says, this will be, actually, it's hin karvu, the approaching, behold, approaching. Behold, coming near, drawing really close. Behold, approaching. And then he says, is your death, the day of your death. So in other words, what he's saying, as Moshe goes out on his 120th day, he's done all he can do, and now he says, your death is what looms before you. Your dying looms before you. That's a way to wake up in the morning, right? The Holy Creator of the universe, your friend tells you, hey, Bill, Rory, today's you're going to die. It's very, very close. You're going to die today. And so that's what gets Moshe up and out, and I call it the hin karvu, the behold, approaching moment that awakens him to go out, and he goes to every tribe, every group, and he begins to download individually to each one of them, all the things he could possibly download. Hin karvu, my day is approaching, my death is approaching. So as we get ready for Yom Kippur, what is Yom Kippur? The day in which our death approaches. As I said, this is the great coincidence between the Torah portions of the week and the festival cycle. As we go to Yom Kippur, basically we realize we are totally undone and our day approaches. So what shall we do to prepare ourselves against that day? What have you done to prepare yourself against that day? If you were to die tonight, if you were to die tomorrow, if you were to die in the next 10 days, 20 days, if you were to die before Yom Kippur, if you were to have that call, hin karvu, behold, approaching, is death, what would be the legacy that you leave behind? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What legacy do you want to leave for your spouse if you have one? What legacy do you want to leave for your children? What legacy do you want to leave for your grandchildren? What legacy do you want to leave for your friends? What legacy do you want to leave for the community in which you live? Will it be said of you that all of these spheres are better off because you were present? Will it be said that of your marriage, that your spouse was better off because you are the one that they married? Will your children be better off because you were the one that was allowed to be their parent? Will your parents be better off because you were allowed to be their child? Will your siblings be better for the fact that you were in their midst, knowing them, even dealing with them in their troublesome, difficult times and ways? What legacy? What legacy will you leave? Well, I love to talk about Moshe's legacy because he's our pattern. Moshe left so many legacies. We are having this conversation today. We are alive today. We have a possibility of being face to face, reconnecting with our love portals with the Holy One because Moshe lived, and because he did what he did, and he followed the ways and his imperfections, in his idiosyncrasies, and all the things that he came out of over the course of the years. He left a legacy that spoke volumes to the people of his lifetime and to all generations since. Wow. What kind of legacy are we going to leave? If we were to not make it through Yom Kippur, if we were to not just rehearse our death, but actually die on Yom Kippur, what legacy do we want to leave behind to those who we care about the most? All right, we are out of time from the standpoint of what we're doing with regard to the online Around the Torah in 80 Minutes process. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been quite heavy today. It won't be this way all the time, but it needs to be this way now because of what's looming before us. Hin karavu, behold, approaching, is coming. It's time to make your stand. It's time to become one of the standing ones. It's time to leave the legacy the Creator of the universe designed specifically for you to leave in each of your spheres of influence and relationships. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week, God willing. Amen.